Hello, everypony. I'm Fauna Joy, and today I'd like to talk about everyone's favorite young Pegasus, Scootaloo. More specifically, I'd like to toss my 2 bits into the ring as to why she's unable to fly. This subject's been touched upon before by others. Brawny Buck discussed whether or not she is either handicapped or disabled, and gives some ideas as to how either situation can affect her character development. Dr. Wolf discussed much the same thing, but they both discuss her inability to fly by purely physical standards. Brawny Buck made an analogy to a handicapped student he taught in a PE class who he was able to work one-on-one with to ultimately reach the average level of the class. He did this through muscle and breathing exercises, something he pointed out could very well work for Scootaloo. After all, she does seem to be showing some improvement with her ability to hover over the course of the show, especially after the episode Flight to the Finish. Now, I agree with Brawny that Scootaloo can improve with work, but given that Lauren Faust did say that she created this character with the intention that she will never be able to fly, and considering the way recent episodes with her in them have her beginning to come to terms with this potential fact, I don't think she'll ever be able to make it past the hovering stage. I think this because I don't think her inability to fly is purely physical, and no, I'm not saying it's in her head. I think her problem is magical. Let me elaborate. Let's take a look at her physically. She's very strong, very fast, and can beat her wings at an incredible rate. So if it's a physical lack, it's not much of one. Another theory I've seen is that her wings are undersized, but taking a look at other Pegasi foals, her wings are roughly the same size as every other young Pegasus that's been featured on the show, other than Fluttershy, whose wings were oversized when she was a filly. And it isn't for lack of knowledge either. She's been Rainbow Dash's mentee for several seasons now, and whether or not those several seasons actually cover multiple years or even 1 year, Rainbow Dash has been shown to be an excellent flying teacher a la Hurricane Fluttershy, testing 1, 2, 3, and Top Bolt. She taught not only many natural Pegasi how to fly better, but taught Twilight as well, who has only recently gotten her wings. And given Scootaloo's determination, she'd drink in all Rainbow would have to teach like she was stranded in the desert. That's why I think part of the problem is magical. T-Rex Rampage taught us that one of the main reasons Pegasi can fly is because their magic gives them the ability to do so. I believe that just as unicorns have little or great amounts of magic, so do Pegasi or Earth ponies. Spike states that unicorns typically only have a little magic, but the show has since shown that to be untrue. Many unicorns can actually have a lot of magic pertaining to their specific abilities, hence the School of Magic. Earth ponies can be the same. Many are farmers, yes, but not all. The farming ponies have the most earth magic within them, giving them the greatest ability to grow food or create gems. Pegasus magic, however, gives a Pegasus their speed, maneuverability, and endurance during flight. This is why a monstrosity like Bulk Biceps can keep up the pace in a tornado, while a much smaller Pegasus like Fluttershy has to make a tremendous effort to even get a decent reading on the anemometer. Now, there is some physical ability to factor in here. The stronger the wing muscles, the better the individual Pegasus's ability. But no amount of training for any of these ponies will give them the ability that ponies like Rainbow Dash have. That's because each pony has a limited flying ability due to how much magic they have within them. Without a lot of special training, I'd say each pony sits roughly around the middle of what magic they have within them. Rainbow Dash is possibly the most magical Pegasus of all time, or at the very least the current era. Fluttershy, on the other hoof, isn't very magical. She's a decent flyer and is able to communicate with animals, but I'd imagine her animal communication is a different kind of magic, something more along the lines of the kind of magic all ponies share, the magic that gives ponies cutie marks, so it really doesn't contribute to her ability to fly. So what does this mean for Scootaloo? Well, Scootaloo would seem to have hardly any flight magic at all, even less than Fluttershy. As I pointed out earlier, other Pegasus foals have wings the same size as Scootaloo's, yet in the episode Flight to the Finish, we see 2 foals flying very well in a complex aerodynamic display. These foals would have an average amount of magic. Scootaloo has only just enough to keep herself hovering for a few moments, the bare minimum a Pegasus can even have. But why is it she can only hover in place by herself, yet she can achieve motorbike speeds while on a scooter? Well, Pegasus flight involves two basic things: speed and maneuverability. Rainbow Dash is full to bursting with both. Fluttershy has much more maneuverability than speed. We've seen this when she's had to make an emergency rush to save an animal. Scootaloo is all speed. Any maneuverability she has on her scooter is through her body and hoof movements, just like a human on a scooter. This is why she can only hover in one spot when she flies on her own. Maneuverability isn't just one's ability to turn on a dime, it's one's ability to move at all. Let me use an example from Dungeons & Dragons. Having access to creatures that can fly, the creators of D&D had to come up with definable differences of ability. Here are the varying degrees of flight ability as they appear in version 3.5. Perfect. The creature can perform almost any aerial maneuver it wishes. It moves through the air as well as a human moves over smooth ground. This is where Rainbow Dash falls. She can do pretty much anything. I'd also say the Wonderbolts fall here too, as they're considered the best of the best. Good. The creature is very agile in the air, like a housefly or hummingbird, but cannot change direction as readily as those with perfect maneuverability. These would be the ponies like the Flying Olympiads, the medalists who don't typically need the help of some pony like Rainbow Dash to place. They're above the skill level of the typical pony, but not quite at a better level than the rest. Average. The creature can fly as adroitly as a small bird. These are just about every pony you come across. Fluttershy would fall into the lower echelons of this category, as she does have enough maneuverability to do what needs to be done. On an interesting note, Rarity fell into this category while she had butterfly wings too, given her demonstration during the Young Flyers competition. Poor. The creature flies as well as a very large bird. These would be ponies like the more fleshed out bulk biceps and possibly derpy. They fly well enough to get around, but can't really do anything special. Clumsy. The creature can barely maneuver at all. This is where Scootaloo falls. I'd imagine there are a few others who might fall into this category too, but they're very few and extremely far between. I'll say this now because I know plenty of people will point it out in the comments if I don't, that according to the D&D rules, hovering is only achievable at good maneuverability or higher. This isn't D&D. This is My Little Pony. The rules are very different. Any pony can hover if they're a Pegasus. The speed at which the wings beat will generate enough lift to get the Pegasus off the ground, but it won't let them maneuver since it's taking all of their effort just to stay aloft. Maneuverability will let a Pegasus hover too, as it takes the ability to maneuver the wings in a certain way without speed to stay hovering in one spot, so hovering can be done either way. But though speed may be part of her talent, as indicated by her cutie mark, even she can only go so fast, hence why she used her ill-advised slingshot to get into Cloudsdale and meet Rainbow's parents. A hill combined with her wings may have gotten her part of the way, but the CMC needed to place the slingshot close enough and get the right momentum, so there may not have been a hill high enough. Even then, the ramp seemed to have barely gotten her to the right place, but that could have been bad aiming. Something some might wonder is what would happen if Scootaloo used something like that slingshot, then started beating her wings in an attempt to fly. After all, there are many real-world things that require a hefty speed boost to get flying. Jets coming off of an aircraft carrier, for instance. It is an interesting thought experiment, but I personally believe she wouldn't fly much farther than the initial momentum of the boost she was given. After all, the reason a speed boost works for a craft coming off of an aircraft carrier is because they're generating enough of their own speed on top of that boost to carry them through the air. Scootaloo just doesn't have that kind of flight power. Her speed might carry her for a short time, but then she'd likely fall like a fuzzy orange stone. So what does this mean for her future as an adult Pegasus? Well, primarily it means she won't be able to assist with such duties as clearing the skies and possibly creating tornadoes to bring water to Cloudsdale. Other than that, her life won't be much different than it is now. She would need to remain close to the ground in order to help Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle with other ponies' cutie marks anyway. But what about outside the Crusader business? Well, ever since the introduction of the CMC, Scootaloo has always been more than a bit of a daredevil. She's always been the first to suggest extreme sports and is constantly doing reckless stunts, as I've already mentioned. She shows no sign of slowing down. If anything, her stunts are getting even more dangerous, so I predict she'll become a professional daredevil like Evel Knievel. Scootaloo, the flightless Pegasus, who risks her life to perform death-defying stunts for the amazement of all equines. It may sound like a bit of a depressing future for some pony like her, but with the other two CMC and the main six supporting her and keeping her spirits up, I think she'll have the time of her life. Waiting for the day when I can buy my ticket to see Scootaloo the Daredevil, I'm Fauna Joy flying averagely off. Hi everyone, I'd like to ask you all for some help searching for something in the show. When I attended Everfree Northwest, Denny Liu and Tim Stubbe said there was one more Starlight Glimmer appearance in Season 5 that the fans haven't found yet, though they admitted themselves that it goes by so quickly they have difficulty finding it themselves. The only real clue they gave us is that it takes place during a CMC song. Well, the only CMC songs that I can find happen in the episode Crusaders of the Lost Mark, which would be a logical place to put a Starlight appearance. However, I went through those songs frame by frame and found nothing. So here's where I need your help. Let's pick this season apart and find that appearance. It could be a single frame, but by Celestia, we will find it. If you find it or think you found it, post your find in the comments below. He did this through muscle and breathing exercises, something he pointed out could work very well for Scootaloo. Brawny Buck made an analogy to a handicapped student he taught in a PE class who was Rainbow Dash has been shown to be an excellent flying teacher a la Hurricane, while a much smaller Pegasus like Fluttershy has to make a tremendous effort to even get a decent reading on the I knew that word was going to trip me up. Well, Pegasus flight involves two basic things. I'll tell you those basic things. Any maneuverability she has on her scooter is through her body and hoof movements, just like a human on a scooter. After all, the reason a speed boost works for a craft coming off of an aircraft carrier is because they're generating enough of their own speed on top of that boost to continue carrying them. I'm running out of air.